media is a double-edged sword. It can be good, it can be very bad, and you need to approach it with caution. Even when you think you're going in to something that's a good news situation, or you think it's good news for me, you asked me earlier, did I ever have a plan? No, I didn't say in 3 years I'm going to be this data guru, or in 5 years I'm going to be in this great directorship position, or anything like that. Yeah. I saw opportunity in the moment, I saw the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to do new things, and I took it.
Welcome everybody to the second episode of Raw Truths. It hasn't been an easy journey for us, but with all your love and all your support through our channels, it definitely has been worth it. Please make sure that you're going down and comment below about how you feel about our podcast or our episode. If you want us to cover up any topics in our podcast, feel free to DM us on our Instagram. In this episode, we are going to be meeting a very special guest who's really close to my heart. And I'm 100% sure that after watching this episode, he is going to be close to yours. Although he has tons of experience to share from IBM, being the Director of Corporate Affairs and Director of Communications for Canada IBM, but he has also dipped his toes into ventures in itself. There's a lot of things to unfold from IBM to the ventures that he had. So what are we waiting for? Let's check it out. Welcome all of the venturers. Today we have in our studio one of the exceptional persons I've ever met in my life, Dave Robitaille. He is somebody who's the smartest and hardworking person I've ever known. So thank you so much, Dave, for coming in our studio today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's fun and exciting to be here.
Thank you. So tell us more about your journey and all of the listeners who are watching you right now.
Great. So where do I start? You know, I think when I think about my own career, you know, we tend to think about careers as being a big kid job, but the truth is that it starts early. And we think about those first jobs and the formative skills that you gain through first experience. For me, I had two older brothers, and I grew up in a small community north of Toronto, a farming community. So the tradition for most boys was to get jobs on local farms. And so my two older brothers were off working for one of the local farmers. And one day in August, when I was 10 years old, there was a bang on the door, and it was my parents' next door neighbor, Mr. Smith. And I'll never forget him saying to my dad, "Bruce, I know you got another one in there and I need him." And so I got summoned to put my shoes on, and off to work I went at the tender age of 10.
Wow.
And, you know, from Mr. Smith, I learned this incredible lesson about hard work and work ethic. He never stopped moving. I knew him all the way until his passing at the age of 91. Never stopped learning from him about the value of hard work and how to do things. So, you know, from there I had sort of traditional high schooler kind of jobs. I worked at a grocery store. But at the age of 18, at the age of 17, I went off to university. And at the age of 18, I got the opportunity to start working at IBM as a student.
Wow.
That would have been February of my first year of university, and I never stopped. So from that point on, I had the opportunity to work there and turn it into a career, a fabulous, interesting career for me.
Did you have any long-term plans in mind when you were like thinking of working at IBM?
No, not really. I mean, my father worked at IBM for a long time. It was a great company. It gave great opportunities, but I never was, I still am not the sort of person to have like a 3 and a 5 and a 10-year plan the way some people are.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly a blow in the wind, go with the flow person, but I'm somewhere in between there. Like I can find interest and opportunity in just about anything.
Wow. So when it comes to the role at IBM in itself, I also heard, I think I also recall our conversation where you said you worked 100 hours a week. Is that true?
Yeah, so you know, the first jobs that I had in IBM were actually in manufacturing and supply chain sort of roles. It was the height of the personal computer era. People en masse were buying computers and putting them in their homes. It was a very busy time, a very heady time. And the supervisors and managers that I had recognized the fact that I had this love and passion for working and working hard, so the opportunity was there. I once went a period, I think, of 9 months without taking a day off because there was work to be done and the opportunity was there, so I just kept working. And I was a young guy, I was paying my way through university and there was money to be made, and so if it meant 100-hour work weeks, that's what I did. And as it turned out, I never really stopped. So I graduated university, I continued to work at IBM, and there was always that kind of work there to be done. But it was, for me, a labor of love. I loved it.
From the 10 years age till now, even going
to this day, and to this day.
Wow, that's some level of commitment, I must say.
Yeah. I had this great opportunity, as I said, to work hard like that, and it was recognized, and I got to work with interesting people and learn new skills, and I built it into a 30-year career where by the end of my career, I was working as the Director of Corporate Affairs for the IBM Corporation, and at one point in time, I got to be the Director of Communications at the same time as being the Director of Corporate Affairs.
Wow.
Interesting times.
How did you end up like managing both of these roles at the same time? There must be a big challenge for you.
It was a big challenge. How it came to pass was I was offered or assigned the role of Director of Corporate Affairs from my boss, who is the Chief Operating Officer of IBM Canada at the time. And a few weeks after I accepted the role and had started, my colleague, who was the Director of Communications, went on maternity leave, and she wanted to come back to that job after her maternity leave. So Pat approached me and said, hey, like, I need somebody to do this job for a year. And of course, my initial instinct was, Pat, I don't know anything about media and communications. I'm the wrong person for this job. But with his confidence and some tools at my disposal, he persuaded me that it was good for him, good for the company, good for me, and that we would make it work.
Most of the people might actually run away from just having one job as a director of of anything, basically. So having like those two jobs just makes me think like that level, like you need to have that level of surety in yourself to make those things happen.
Yeah, for sure. One of the greatest parts of that is by this point I was, pretty close to 20 years deep in my career. And in order to assist or support me through this transition into a role that I still felt woefully unqualified for, Pat was able to persuade a previous Director of Communications to come out of retirement to sort of be my mentor coach in the role. This was a guy that was at least 20 years older than me, a guy I had looked up to as one of the legends of the company, and all of a sudden, not only is he working beside me, but I'm his boss, and he's there to be my mentor coach. And it was something I got to do where I got to learn an incredible new set of skills that otherwise I never would have had the opportunity to do, for sure.
So you actually, being in this position, you were dealing a lot of media most of the time, and especially for giant like IBM in itself. And I think most of the viewers who are aspiring entrepreneurs or or freelancers or trying to make something which in future might lead them to have some connections with media, or they might be in front of media in itself, and they might be in that scrutiny in itself. So how would you be tackling any questions that you might not even know the answers to when you're in front of media?
Well, firstly, I think a lesson for a lot of people, the uninitiated, is media is a double-edged sword. It can be good, it can be very bad, and you need to approach it with caution. Even when you think you're going in to something that's a good news situation, or you think it's good news for me, the media is motivated differently, and you have to be very circumspect about approaching media. Particularly if you're trying to approach them, traditional media is not going to be used to your benefit. So, my first piece of advice is, be careful.
Or stay out.
Or in a lot of cases, stay out. the opposite, when it's bad news, there's different trains of thought. Sometimes you have to get out in front of the bad news and set the narrative. Sometimes you just have to put your head down.
Yeah.
And the news cycle moves so quickly that, 2 or 3 days later, there's an entirely different story that will come up that will shield you from it. So you have to develop the instincts to understand which situation is which, and understand what's the potential value or the potential downfall of being involved with media at all.
All I'm hearing from your conversation right now is take a pause before you're rushing into having those conversations with media in itself.
Yeah.
Also, one more thing, let's say there's a situation where somebody gets in front of the media and they just don't know how to answer a question, or they just don't have the answer to it. How would one go ahead with that?
The simplest advice, going back to what I said previously about the news cycle moves fast, is be honest and say, I don't know the answer to that question. Really? The media will smell bullshit out in a heartbeat. And just like, to use a sports analogy, the retaliation is worse than the original, or, in the case of legal, it's like the cover-up is worse than the crime, right? So I think a little bit of humility in front of people who are experts at researching whether something is true or not is, if you don't know the answer, don't pretend. Say, I don't know the answer, but I will get back to you when I find the person who has the answer and give it to you.
I think even the smartest person around in the world do that, and do follow that part. Even they might not know the answers to it, and they might not rush to it to answer something, and it might even lead to something crazy out there.
Yeah, exactly. And the same advice holds true in interpersonal relationships and in customer relationships. Is, no human has all the answers to everything, and anybody who expects you to have all of the answers is probably being unreasonable. And it's perfectly fine to take the humble approach and say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to get you the answer to that. And then follow up. The follow-up's important.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So let's go back into your journey is so long. I've seen, you started off at 10 years of age in itself. And you've seen so many things, so many experiences that you might have had. Any experience in your life that might have changed your business perspective, or anything that might have taught you a lesson in life in itself?
Oh, for sure. There are lots of things that you might think of as moments of truth that you encounter in your life, whether it's in your work life or your personal life. I mean, from a career point of view, I can give one example that I pinpoint as, I'll give two examples that I sort of pinpoint as being instrumental in the path that I ended up taking. So as a really young guy, hadn't been at IBM for very long, but one of the guys that I worked with invited me out on a Saturday morning to watch his son's hockey game. And I was, a bit of a big shot, thinking myself as to my own talents in the game. And I made some offhand remark to George about the quality of the Pee-wee hockey game I was watching. And he shot back at me that if I was so smart, maybe I should get into coaching hockey, which I hadn't done at that point, which it turned out to be an instrumental part of my career, not just because of the experience, but also some of the people that I got to meet. So I started coaching hockey at the ripe old age of 19 and led to the experience of leading a group of kids. I got to work with others who were experienced coaches who also happened to be experienced executives in the business world. And it also gave me that first taste of what it was like to be in a leadership position, which, translated into other things in my work career. So there's a lesson in there about stepping up and being involved in things that are not directly tied to work or career or income even, right? A second moment of truth that sticks with me, the people who know me well know that I'm a bit of a data nerd and I love analytics. And so again, I was probably a little less than 30 at the time. I got put into a a role at IBM that was related to sort of inventory management, supply planning. I think I skipped over a bit of my career path for the first 20 years was largely in manufacturing and supply chain kind of roles. So I got put in this analytical role, and keeping in mind the times we're in now versus this 20-something years ago, I created a set of spreadsheets for my boss to analyze the inventory levels and data patterns in customer buying, which I just thought was kind of a normal fun exercise. But my boss was sort of blown away that I had figured out that we were sitting on 2 to 3 times as much inventory as we needed to cover a 26-week cycle, and that amounted into the hundreds of millions of dollars, and this was remarkable to him. And suddenly I got put in all these other opportunities because I could see through data and figure these things out, right? But the point is, there are these moments of truth that you have in your career, and sometimes you have to be on the lookout for them. You asked me earlier, did I ever have a plan? No, I didn't say in 3 years I'm going to be this data guru, or in 5 years I'm going to be in this great directorship position, or anything like that. I saw opportunity in the moment, and I saw the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to do new things, and I took them.
So I think how we all move forward in like this pattern, we also come down in this slope as well. So at times we go up, we go down. That is just a moment that happens in our life. Any point of time in your life you had any downfall in your career, or any time that you faced certain situations that you had to struggle your way out?
Yeah, I think the adage for that is some days you're the bug and some days you're the windshield, right?
I like that. I'm going to make a note. Next time in the next episode, I'm going to use that up.
Yeah. And the first message is, talking about confidence, overconfidence, arrogance, like fate has a way of intervening if you think too highly of yourself, right? The fates will come and find you if you're getting a little too big on yourself, and introduce some challenge to remind yourself of your own humanity. But of course, there's lots of downturns in a career. Simple ones. I had bosses I didn't get along with. There's no more important relationship in a working career than with your immediate supervisor, and sometimes you get ones that are hard to get along with, or you just don't match well, and you have to suck it up and navigate that. In my post IBM career, I worked for 30 years for IBM. I retired. I had always had a goal to sort of be my own boss at one point in time and start something entrepreneurial. So with some others, I founded a nonprofit organization that was designed to help local small businesses navigate the world of entrepreneurship. And as a result of that and a whole bunch of other stuff, I ended up getting sued.
Wow.
And, it was a behavior of one of the partners in the organization. I got caught up in it. It's the sort of thing that when you work in a big corporation, you're shielded typically from that sort of thing. But as entrepreneurs, you're not, you're neither shielded nor are you typically equipped to deal with that sort of adversity. And, the kinds of business relationships you find yourself into can go sour pretty quickly, and small business to small business turns into something. So,
for sure.
So I've experienced that, but again, with a career's worth of learning under my belt, learn to just step back, take a deep breath, calm down, figure out that it's just like any other challenge you're going to face, that there's going to be a process that you have to go through. And
wow. I think for most of the entrepreneurs, it's definitely a nightmare to even think of being sued off for any possible reason. And as you said, it's very hard to find support at this point of time of like having a backing, because if you're working for a company, you have a backing of the company in itself. Right now, you're yourselves back in itself. So I think it's a very great advice for all of the listeners who are watching to make sure that you're not rushing into acting but first thinking of what can be done in this point of time. Take that deep breath and think of how they can move and proceed forward with it.
Yeah, and as entrepreneurs, we typically should have legal counsel close at hand for mundane things like incorporations and for
legal counsel.
Have legal counsel for contract setting. The law changes constantly. The most important decision that an entrepreneur will probably ever make is the first person they hire as an employee into their company. And I can't stress enough the importance of things like understanding the Employment Standards Act and your legal responsibilities as an employer. And, a good legal generalist on business law can handle the incorporation, the contracts, the employment, and inevitably the dispute that might turn into the lawsuit. So if you have that person at hand, it helps to navigate when and if the day comes that the dispute turns into something more serious.
Did you had any legal counseling for this business in itself, or?
Well, like the actual process itself, yes, of course, I had to retain legal counsel. Fortunately, through a lifetime of working and volunteering, I knew several lawyers, so that part wasn't difficult. Going back to my IBM days, one of the persons that I spent a considerable amount of time in as the director of corporate affairs and the director of communications was the chief counsel of IBM. Because, every time I got trotted out to say something to the media, the lawyer was not very far behind, right?
He's just right there watching.
Whether it was good or bad. But, the work that we did there with media relations, public relations, corporate relations, government relations, all of those corporate affairs sorts of things, the lawyers are never very far behind.
Yes.
So I had the good fortune not just to have them close at hand, but also to interact with them regularly and understand not just how they operate, but how the legal system operates, and to be prepared. Not intentionally prepared that, gee, I'm going to go out and get sued one day. But when that day arrived, I had I felt fortunate that I'd at least had that level of experience to be able to lean back on. But if I were to give a new entrepreneur a piece of advice, it would be lawyers seem to be an expense or an expensive line item. But, as one lawyer once pithily told me, the reason they're expensive is because they're worth it.
I think most of the people, when they're making when they are going through the journey of entrepreneurship in itself, I think this is the piece they definitely miss off. They're like, this is an expensive piece. Let me put this on the side while they're working on other aspects of the organization in itself.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good, important point that we spoke about it. And I think all of the listeners who are watching, I hope that you take this piece from Dave today, from this episode. All right, let's move forward to the rapid fire round.
Okay.
We're going to use either one word or a sentence. I'm going to put a question and you're going to be answering in one word or one sentence.
Okay,
you got
sounds
it?
like a lot of pressure. I think we've already established that I can make one sentence go for a long time. So.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite business book?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I've read a lot of business books. Okay. It has to be one, eh? I can't do two?
No, one.
Okay, if I have to pick one, it's by Tim Ferriss and it's called Tools of Titans.
Oh, I've never read that one. What is it about?
Tim Ferriss is a very, very interesting guy. He's written quite a number of books. You might be familiar with titles like The 4-Hour Workweek.
Yeah.
So he wrote this book, Tools of Titans, where he basically gave a set of interview questions to extremely highly successful people about behavioral stuff. And so the whole book is just this 100 really successful people's answers to their own behavioral questions. So from it, you can sort of learn what do what are some really interesting and weird and different things that people do that they attribute their personal success to. So I found that one to be an interesting way of learning from other successful people of some of the things that you can do.
After we're done with the shoot, I'm going to look for that for sure.
There we go.
Okay. So, best piece of advice you have ever received?
Don't take yourself too seriously. You know?
I like that one.
Entrepreneurs, executives, you can start to believe your own press clippings. You're not that big a deal. You know, there's a few people in the world, a really small few, who are a really big deal.
Yeah.
The other reality, I think, is that no matter how successful you are, you might get there through hard work, you might get there through personal brilliance, but you never get there without a lot of other people along the way. And a solid dose of humility never hurts in helping to propel your success.
For sure.
Truthfully, I'm going to slip in a cheat to the previous question here by, you know, you should read the book Give and Take by Adam Grant, another great business book. But
you're trying to slide in all of your books.
I'm shamelessly cheating here. That the truth of the matter is that studies have shown it. The most successful people in the world are actually givers, not takers, right? So that success is born of working in teams and working in collaboration with other people, and the more you give, the more you get in return.
Yes, absolutely. Love that. Okay, a productive tool you can't live without.
Apple AirPods.
Oh my God, I can so relate with it. I just cannot.
I'm old enough to remember the first personal computers.
Yeah.
I personally worked on the launch of the first laptop computers. That's how old I am. I had the very first Palm Pilot that ever came out. People raved about them. I couldn't get my head around them. I never could figure out why they made people more, or why people thought they were more productive. The first and one of the very, very few pieces of technology that I found to be life-changing were Apple AirPods.
Definitely. They're such a blessing. I can't anymore keep my phone like this and get on a call. I just cannot. I have to put my AirPods and then just walk through it.
Well, I mean, they allow you to walk and talk, drive and talk, ride in an
basically
elevator,
do anything.
listen to podcasts, you know,
Yes.
listen to podcasts.
This one, you know, we're just saying.
Put your AirPods in and listen.
Oh my God. I think they've got the
No
sign.
question whatsoever. Like in all the gadgetry I've ever had the chance to use. And it's not even close. Miles ahead of anything else.
What do you guys think would be your tool that you use? Just comment that below. Okay. What would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Just do it.
Just like Nike?
Just like the Nike slogan, you know? Just do it.
Yeah.
Opportunity comes around every day.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a bit younger, I think you fear being involved. You know, it's really about getting involved. It's about not being a yes man. It's about being a yes, we can figure that out, or yes, I'll give that a try. Like the word yes is very powerful. Get involved, try new things. When you're 18 years old, it's pretty much the only time in your life, unless of course you achieve billionaire status, where failure doesn't have significant consequence to it. Like there's a train of thought that, you know, failure is actually success and failure is a gift and all that. And there's some truth to that. But, you know, when you're 35 and you have a mortgage, you know, failure has significant consequences to it. When you're 18 and you're living at home and, you know, that's the time to go for it. Get involved, try new things, learn new skills, meet new people, understand the world around you. I had the opportunity when I was 18, I think, for the most part, I took it, but looking back now, I thought, boy, I wish I had done more than I did.
Yeah, I think most of the people, when they're 18, they feel like, oh my God, like this is the biggest problem that they have. But when you look at it now, it's like, it's not.
Yeah, the world's a big, scary place,
Yes.
and small things seem like big things, but they're really not.
Yeah.
And
That's the best time actually to shoot for stuff, right? Don't you think?
yeah, the truth of the matter is that people, have reasonable expectations about what 18-year-olds are, capable of and should be able to accomplish.
Yeah.
So you should strive to overachieve those. Work hard. Like
Yeah.
when you're 18, you've got a little bit of a brain and you got a strong body.
Yeah.
Work hard.
Get off that Instagram or TikTok, guys. That's what he's trying to say. All I'm letting you know. Unless you're using to sell some products.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap on our rapid fire round.
Okay, thank goodness.
But
The pressure was intense there.
but there's only one more left. So we reached out to our listeners, and one of the listeners had a question for you.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
I think the pressure's mounting again.
Well, so here's one from Saisha. She writes, I often find myself walking the tightrope between confidence and overconfidence in my professional journey. How do you, Dave, determine where to draw that fine line? And can you share an experience where you navigated this balance in your career at IBM? What's your take on it?
Okay, Saisha. Saisha?
Yes.
Saisha.
Seems
okay.
like, oh yeah.
All right. This is for you. I mentioned earlier about a healthy dose of humility. I think, generally speaking, and in my experience, people like to work with people who are experienced but not full of themselves. There is that fine line between, I know everything, and hey, I've had some experiences, and what my experiences have taught me is that this might be an answer to this question. Outside of linear mathematics, there are a few definite answers to anything in the world. Anything that is outside of that, you might think this is the answer. It might be the answer today, and tomorrow it could be a different answer. So the approach to situations is important. Bringing to bear your thoughts and your experiences, as opposed to puffing out your chest and saying, I'm smart, I know the answer, this is the answer. I think it's a good approach. As I said earlier, success is not something that happens overnight, and it's rarely something that happens because an individual is particularly brilliant. It happens through group effort and through trial and error and through hard work and all of these things. So, in the moment, you have to think about the fact that the people you're working with, you may be working with them today on something, but you want to work with them tomorrow and next week and the month after.
Wow.
Right? And again, the question was overconfidence versus overconfidence.
Yeah.
So the confidence is born out of a team, and the avoidance of the overconfidence is the humility of taking a collaborative approach with the client and focusing on the outcome that they're looking for, as opposed to marching in and saying, bang, there's the answer to your question.
Right.
So like we got into their restaurants and we watched the teenagers flipping the burgers and manning the tills and talking to the customers through the drive-through window, and understood all of the different moving parts in keeping one of those places going, so that we could build a solution that we can make work for that. So I mean, that's one example that comes to mind in terms of doing that. But I could probably talk your ear off all night with different
We can go all
approaches to
night,
that.
by the way.
We probably could, yeah.
So I hope, Saisha, you got your answer here.
Yeah, that was for you, Saisha. And thank you for the question.
So there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that I'm seeing around in Canada, around North America, all of our viewers who are watching us. And many are just on the journey of freelancing. So what's one piece of advice you would give all of those viewers who are watching right now?
Well, I think the data actually, I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit of a data nerd, right? And the truth is that what the data shows is that fewer people are actually choosing entrepreneurship as a pathway, which is discouraging, disappointing, you know, alarming to some degree. Small business is the motor of the Canadian economy. We need people to start those businesses. But, you know, very similar to the advice I would give my 18-year-old self, it's like, just do it. Like, it can seem scary, but the opportunity out there is wonderful. There's, like, I had this wonderful corporate career, and now I'm several years deep into an entrepreneurial career, and there's so much opportunity around to see all of the things that people want and all of the things that other small businesses and sometimes bigger businesses need in order to keep their supply chains moving and to provide services and products to their customers. Like, the opportunity is huge. So the first piece of advice is do it. Like, I don't think you'll be disappointed at it. Now, on top of that, I talked several times in our discussion about humility too, right? Like, and no more than in an entrepreneurial career is the adage about some days you're the bug and some days you're the windshield more true.
Right.
I mean, it can change by the minute, you know. One minute you take a call and you're getting an order for thousands of dollars, and the next minute the machine that you own breaks and you're out of business for, you know, who knows, several hours, several days. Those are all the realities. You know, planning is incredibly important. Cash flow planning, nothing can be more important for an entrepreneur than understanding where the money is at all times. I am surprised, sometimes stunned, when I talk to small business people, entrepreneurs, and, you know, I ask them questions about the state of their business, and I'll get an answer that, like, well, you know, I'm not really a numbers person. Like, you got to be a numbers person.
When you're in business,
you have to learn to be a numbers person. I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to slip another book title in to the answer. So I've just finished reading this book by Dan Martell. It's called Buy Back Your Time. The concept being that you should really understand the value of your own personal time. And any business process that you as the entrepreneur are personally executing on that you can outsource for less than how you value your own time, you should. Which is, again, it's one of those things, it's a relatively simple concept conceptually, but when you're a new entrepreneur and you have no money,
basically zero.
You know, going back to knowing your numbers, like, you know, oh, I need to hire somebody for $50 an hour to do this, and I have precisely $0 in my bank account. Like, the math breaks on it pretty quick. But the concept is very important, that as your business grows, you need to be hyper focused on where's the most valuable allocation of your time as the entrepreneur, as the founder. And how do you hire expertise? We talked earlier about lawyers, right? Lawyers seem very expensive, but they're expensive until they're worth it, right?
For sure.
And I think another one is marketing, right? People, they don't understand the science of marketing. They misunderstand what marketing is and why it's important. And they toil away trying to grow a business, and they look at marketing as this big, incomprehensible expense. But how else are you going to get hundreds or thousands of customers to give you their money if you don't invest in, not just in the line of business, but in the expertise? And in my vast experience, like, the vast majority of the population truly doesn't understand what marketing is.
I think most of the entrepreneurs who are there, they're more focused towards making the product or making their service in itself. But they're like, how are you going to reach those people? That's the bridge that marketing makes for you. And I think it is also a very crucial piece. I think I would add one more thing to all that you said for all of the viewers is most of the people are so comfortable with their 9-to-5 jobs. And that's the comfort. But I think I heard this somewhere, I don't know where I heard this, but it said, make the new uncomfortable comfortable by getting in it. So you have to get in that uncomfortable situation to make it more comfortable for yourself. So I think that is one of the things as well, like most of the entrepreneurs for sure. And I think you'll definitely agree to that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Another little anecdote I would use to illustrate that point is I think most people, if you're a homeowner or live in a home, will get this one, is that you know, you need tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, tile guys. The world's full of guys who are, and gals now, who are really good at those trades, but most of them are, you know, not that great when it comes to the communications and the and the other parts that go around with being a service provider, right? Most people could rhyme off a couple of experiences that were maddening about, you know, did a great job putting my floor down, but man, it drove me crazy trying to figure out when he was going to show up and when all those kinds of things, right? It's a simple example for an entrepreneur, but you can be good at your domain expertise, but you have to understand all the things you're not good at, and you have to understand either I have the capacity to get good at that, or I need to outsource that to somebody else.
Exactly. I think I love this point that you put forth, is that know when you can do it and know when you cannot, and like allocate it outside. I think that is a good way that we are ending this this question and answer round, which was, I think, pretty good. I want to go.
That was fun. I got to cheat 3 times.
You did. You know what? For you, we are gonna put in like top 10 books that you recommend for all of the listeners, for sure, so that you guys can read those books and then let us know how you feel about it. So that's a wrap with all of the questions. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming in. I know you're definitely busy, so we are really grateful to have you here. And all of the listeners who are watching, if you have any questions for Dave, you can shoot in the comments and we'll make sure that they reach to Dave. So thank you so much, and make sure that you're subscribing to our channel. Make sure you're following us if you're watching us on Instagram right now. And stay tuned for more episodes of Raw Truths. Bye, everybody.